Hey, what is up? We are looking at Final Fantasy XIII today on the PC, because that recently got released towards the end of last year, I believe. It got released on Steam for about $15 or about £10, I think. I'm not sure. I think I got it for about 50% off. It was on sale or something. So we're just gonna have a look at this. Obviously, this game's actually kind of old. It came out in 2010, I want to say, or 2009, the original Final Fantasy on consoles, or Final Fantasy XIII, I should say. But I didn't play it, and I imagine a lot of people didn't play it, especially people who didn't.
That's where you live, right?
Who were looking to get it on PC, such as myself. But it's
We'll stop in when we get there.
it's a bit of a weird game. It's a bit of a weird Final Fantasy game. It's kind of
No one's there but my dad.
not necessarily controversial, but I kind of imagine it as kind of an unpopular Final Fantasy game. It's not one of the worst by a long stretch. There are definitely way worse ones, but I get the impression that it wasn't received particularly well. I certainly remember it being received quite poorly. I know people had a lot of different problems with it. But anyway, we'll get into that. I'm about 7 to 8 hours in. You probably saw from that save point. Probably said my playtime, but I missed that.
Okay, time to hunt some lassie.
So
Find him and that's that?
Don't get all hot and bothered.
it's probably gonna be a lot of weird stuff. If you haven't played this game, you're gonna be kind of confused. But we're not too deep in, so I hope there won't be too many spoilers for you. But I mean, obviously,
Doing the right thing.
if you want to play this, then I don't know what's going on. If you want to play this, then probably stop watching. So there you go. You do get a lot of these kind of flashbacks. It's kind of interesting the way that they deal with the narrative. It's you, instead of the usual Final Fantasy method of like storytelling where everyone's in the same party or whatever, and you're going around as a group. It's just like you see the story being told from like 2 or 3 different small groups of people, between like 2 and 3 people or whatever, going around together, and it kind of splits up the narrative a little bit, and there's a lot of these flashbacks, and it's like slowly piecing together what happened before the start of this game and stuff. Again, I won't really try and explain what is going on here because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't played this, but no. Snow is a really gay name. We just get that out of the way. Oh boy, that's not good. Oh, I wasn't expecting to start this with a cutscene, but there you go. I'm sure we'll get to some gameplay in a minute. I don't know what's going on, but there's nothing about this looks good. Ah. I'm actually using a controller. There is obviously full keyboard support. I don't think there's mouse support. I don't think. I haven't actually tried it. Yeah, I'm just using a controller because I find it easier. It maps automatically, so that's nice.
Sarah.
We'll get to see it once this cutscene ends,
I went
but
to the foul sea hoping to help her.
the PC port's decent. It was when it first came out. It was kind of a mess. I know it got a lot of flack from a lot of PC users because the frame rate was locked to 30, I think, and
Snap to it. We're rolling out.
I think the highest resolution you could get was 720p or something, which is just silly on a PC. But I think it's in a fairly recent update. They uncapped the frame rate so it can run at least 60. I think, I don't know if it goes higher than that. I think it might be capped at 60, but and then also they added 1080p support, which is nice. I don't think you can go higher than that. You might be able to, but as far as I'm aware, the max is like 1920 by 1080. And obviously, it looks quite nice. It was pretty nice looking game when it came out, but then again, it's like 5 years old. So they haven't really done. I don't think there's done a huge amount with the assets and like the lighting and stuff and a lot of the technical stuff. But obviously, it's been up-resed and stuff. But you know, it still holds up. Still looks good. So, like I was saying, with the whole split narrative, this is another one of the parties. This is, she's called Vanille or something. Nobody's called Sounds or something. I don't know.
You don't know? I thought you had somewhere in mind the way you took off.
Well, right at the start of this video, before the cutscene, I'd been playing with those two characters for a while. There was like a whole bit. It was Lightning, which is obviously the main character that won the cover. Insert generic moody Final Fantasy protagonist, you know, whatever. But, and a guy called Hope, which he's called Hope. That's like such a Final Fantasy name. Incredible. So now we haven't been back to these two for a while. They kind of split off, and again, you know, I won't spoil the story or whatever, because also I don't really remember it. It was quite a while ago, but we're back to these two now.
What do we do?
What do? Right now, what can we do?
I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I haven't actually played this game. Or actually, no, that's not true. I bought it when it came out.
Right. No choice.
And I want to say I got to like the second disc of 3 on the 360.
The other way.
But I might as well have never played it because I don't remember anything about it.
Which would be to Nautilus.
So I really have no idea what's going on. And again, you know, I'm not that deep in. I'm about 7 hours in, deep enough to sort of have an impression of what I think about this game and stuff. But so far, I like it more than I thought I would, based on some of the things that I've heard about it. You know, with reviews that came out at the time, and some stuff that some friends were telling me when I mentioned I was playing this. I was kind of expecting it to be a lot worse, but you know, we'll get into that later, I guess. So this is the basic combat system. Obviously, you've got your turn-based stuff, and you've got your active time battle bar. That allows you to execute on moves. Each bar is like a specific a specific ability. And some at least cost one bar, some cost 2, 3. I haven't unlocked one that costs 3 yet, but I'm sure it will. And so, one of the complaints that I have heard is that a lot of the combat sort of does it for you in a way. Like you just hit auto chain and it'll chain up a series of suitable spells or abilities that I don't know exactly how it works, but it seems pretty clever the way it does it. Like it will sort of take into account the enemies' like weaknesses or any resistances they've got, and you know. Do 3 abilities that it deems, you know, appropriate or whatever in this situation. So a lot of non-boss fights are like that one. It's just kind of spamming the auto chain because you can sort of trust it to do pretty much what you want. You know, not perfectly, but you don't need it to be perfect with non-boss fights. Which I've heard a lot of people say is, you know, it's kind of tedious or whatever, which it kind of is, and I'm at a point 8 hours in where it's starting to wear on me a little bit. Oh nice, preemptive strike there. But, you know, it's not too bad. Like, the way I see it is that it's not too dissimilar from most Final Fantasy games, with the fact that for non-boss fights you are basically spamming basic like attack and a few basic spells just to hammer through non-boss fights. It's just that in this game, because it's all automated, even to the point where you don't even get to choose what you chain up or what you actually spam, then it's kind of the same as it was in Final Fantasy games, in other Final Fantasy games, in Spirit. It's just more explicit here, so I guess they take out an extra step, which, I don't know. In one way it kind of streamlines it a bit, but in another way it makes it less engaging, I guess. I don't know. I don't mind it so much. Like I said, these non-boss fights have never been, you know, the highlight of this series anyway. Well, I certainly don't think so anyway. So you see in the top right, you've got, or below the health bar even, you've got that, like, percentage meter that's filling up. And that is on a per enemy basis. And that is essentially, I don't know what they actually call it. I just call it a stagger meter because once you fill up that thing, they get staggered just like that. Which means that they take, it doesn't say exactly how much, but it just says, like, significantly more damage. Or actually, I think that the percentage is how much more damage they are taking from your attacks, which I think it's an interesting system. It's like it kind of rewards you for sticking to one target and not flitzing about onto different targets and stuff, which is a pretty interesting way of doing it. But it does kind of mean that for non-boss fights and even boss fights, in a way, a lot of the combat is just you sort of spamming abilities, you know, and watching that meter fill up, and then when it fills up, you kind of just go crazy and do, you know, a ton of damage or whatever. And then it resets and you have to kind of do it again.
You're gonna regret this.
But again, like, you know, like I said, it's similar to the other Final Fantasy game combat systems in spirit. It's just executed a bit differently. You know, call it streamlining or call it dumbing down. You know, it's kind of still the same thing. Yeah, so we just have to stick. See, you can just choose make a chain yourself of abilities, but obviously it's quicker and usually better to just let it do it for you, because they will, like I said, pick, if not the best, then, you know, fairly intelligent choices of spells and abilities and stuff. Sorry, I'll just pop it to the menu before we get into like a cutscene or something. So there's a number of different things going on here. You've got your paradigms, which is a major part of the combat, which is essentially a paradigm is essentially a role or a class, if you will, that each character has, and each character has a couple, 2 or 3. They get more as the game progresses, obviously. But at the moment, these people have got about 2 or 3 each, I think. So you've got Ravager, Commando, Medic, and obviously these all do different things. You have access to different spells whilst you're in those particular roles. So while you're in Ravager, you have access to all your magic spells. While you're in Medic, you have access to all your healing spells and stuff. So it's kind of, a lot of the combat revolves even, sorry, around you kind of jumping between these different roles to take advantage of the various abilities that all, like, strengths you'll get in each one. And obviously, you know, the way this is laid out is that when you jump to a different paradigm deck, as they call them, it changes both characters' paradigms. So you kind of set up a number of different, these are all the default ones, you can make your own. So I can kind of just go like, you know, I want a role where she is a saboteur and he is a, you know, synergist. And then, you know, that's already a thing actually, but, or like that, you know? So you can take advantage, so like, I'm going to go for, you know, hyper defensive, which is like that, which means I'll get buffs and stuff, or, you know, I want to go hyper offensive and stuff. So it's interesting, you know, I like the idea, I like the concept, if not the execution of, kind of jumping between offense and defense and having them being sort of strict roles rather than like in other Final Fantasy games or games of this type where you know, every character just has like a combination of offensive and defensive abilities of different types, and you kind of just use whatever you need at will. But like I think a lot of the combat system is kind of familiar concepts done slightly differently, or in different format, which some people didn't seem to like, but I don't mind that. Also, you'll notice that there's no random encounters like in. I don't think it's been like that for quite. I don't think they've had random encounters like that since 10. I want to say actually. I don't think that was in 12, but I haven't actually played 12, so I don't know. But the typical Final Fantasy thing is that you run around the map and enemies will just randomly attack you, you're randomly put into fights. Whereas now it's more like Chrono Trigger, where you can actually see the enemies, and when you engage with the enemies, that's when the fight starts. So I always much preferred that system to random encounters, as I think a lot of people do, because obviously random encounters are kind of frustrating. They happen all the time. They're annoying. They're repetitive. It can get obviously it can get really extremely frustrating to be making your way through an area and just get fight after fight after fight with very little control over how often you fight or anything like that. So it's nice to have the option to you can even maybe try and skip a fight if you don't want to do it, or you can at least prepare for a fight. You can always see it coming, which is nice. And then of course they've got the concept of like a preemptive strike, where I did one before actually. I think I did one for this fight actually. Where if you oh, I'm gonna die. I need to heal. Potion. If you engage in a fight with an enemy without them seeing you or whatever, then you'll get a free hit on them, which in this game is even more significant than it is in say Chrono Trigger or something, because that first hit gets your what do I call it? The stagger meter or whatever. It boosts that up to like almost 100%, so that the next hit will make him stagger, which is obviously a really good, really great way to start the fight. Makes it a lot easier. And you also probably noticed that one thing they changed is that obviously you've got HP and stuff, and you have to keep yourself alive. But at the end of every fight, everyone just gets healed up to 100% automatically, which is nice. Which might not sound like a big deal, or it might actually sound like it trivializes some of the combat, or trying not to die, or whatever. But I kind of like it, because I like it. Kind of adds like it does something to the pace which you wouldn't really expect. It kind of, and the fact that you don't have to keep healing up after you have to keep going to a menu and healing everyone up after every fight, kind of speeds up the game. It makes it a bit snappy. You can just keep on. You can just do a fight and then move on. And also, you don't have to worry about healing up for a fight in terms of preparation. So I think a lot of the changes to the combat system kind of, like I said before, they just kind of streamlined a lot of stuff, which, at the face of it, might seem like they trivialise a lot of stuff, but I think most of the changes are quite smart. Like some of them, like the auto chain, it's a smart change, but it does kind of trivialise a lot of what you're doing, and it kind of takes away quite a lot of your responsibility in combat. You just have to. I just have to keep hitting auto chain, and it'll keep chaining up the abilities. I don't even have to think about what abilities I'm going to use. I could do it like that, or I could just let them do it and hope that they pick the right stuff, which they generally do. So. And other smaller things, like you probably saw it before, but when I used the potion, it affected every party member, which is obviously a nice change, because usually, or typically, potions would only affect, or consumables would only affect whoever you use them on. So it's a nice change to have potions affect everyone. Makes them more effective. And again, you know, it's kind of subjective. Does it make it easier? Does it trivialize it? Or does it just make it smarter? Streamline it? So I was mentioning the paradigm systems, paradigm shifts, I should say. You can just switch between these at any point, so I can kind of go... I'm going to switch to this one where one of them's a healer and the other is a commando, which is what it was before. Which you don't really need to do in non-boss fights, like I said, but it's a lot more important when you're actually facing, you know, a boss or a tougher enemy, that you have to kind of really think about switch between the different roles and switching smartly between offense and defense and support, and you know, I need to maintain buffs, but I also need to maintain debuffs on the enemy, so I need to switch to support or, you know, whatever. So I think that stuff works quite well. But it's just the combat's kind of simplistic and kind of boring, like 80% of the time when you're not fighting monsters or big enemies, you know? So it kind of makes it a bit of a chore. I mean, you have the option more so than before to skip encounters, seeing as it's not random, but it's pretty hard to skip them, as they will, like, as soon as they see you, they'll start running towards you like they do in the Persona games. But it's possible, also, and obviously you miss out on XP and stuff like that, blah blah blah, but you still have the option, I guess. And speaking of XP, actually, we'll hop into the menu again. This is where... Oh, I actually have a shit ton of XP. This is where you spend your XP. It's kind of like a... Again, you know, I say it's like a streamlined... Oh, what was that thing called in 10? I really can't remember. The sphere or whatever. The leveling system that people seem to like, but I always thought it was kind of dumb. So it's kind of like a streamlined one of them. Like, you have all these abilities, and you have to go through all these to get to the next one. There's like spells and general stat increases and stuff, and you have one for each role, so I can level up her as a Ravager or as a medic. I want to say the passive stuff, like the actual stat increases, apply to all of them, and it's just the spells that are like these, like Asuna and Cure and stuff, that are specific to the actual role. But I might be wrong. So I'm just gonna, as you can see on the left, on the right even, sorry, I have like 4,400 CP, which is crystal points or something, Crystarian points, which is what you used to, which is basically XP. So I have fucked on. I obviously haven't leveled these guys in quite a while. That might be... I don't know if they... Because I haven't been playing with these guys for a while. I've been playing as, like I said, Lightning and... what is it? Lightning and Hope. So I wonder if any XP that you get while playing as other characters go towards these characters as well. That'd be nice, but... So I'm just gonna go through all these. Do an upgraded version of Cure. I will actually be able to get the roll level up, but I don't exactly know what that does or what that means. We'll quickly spend his as well. Like he has Commando, he has, you know, Ravage and Synergist and stuff. So we should make fighting a lot quicker as well. I didn't realise they were so behind on the leveling. We'll just boost some of the Commando stuff, because I think that's his like primary role or default role. Or whatever. what else is there in here? Obviously you got equipment. It's really basic. You have a weapon and an accessory. You can later get talents in the various role trees that will allow you to hold more accessories. But you know, weapons can be upgraded, which is why they have levels. There's like a sort of crafting system. I'll try and find some of these components. All these are used to level up weapons. They're all worth varying amounts of XP or weapon XP, and you level up. Obviously, that increases the damage that weapon does. You also have the accessories, which will increase all sorts of things: max HP, various resistances, more like interesting stuff like improved potions or whatever, but fairly basic stuff. That guy is just off. I don't know what he's doing. They do that all the time. I don't know why. They always just run off, but then they have to come back to fight. So again, like the combat, it's pretty. Boring is kind of a rude word. It's not really my exact opinion of it. I don't think boring is right, but very simple for sure. So you probably feel that for actually battle results. I was just skipping over that. It rates you on all sorts of stuff, and then it gives you a score and then a rating right at the end, which I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure how. I assume that those stars come from the stats or whatever, but that seems weird with how they rate that. I've had fights where I felt like I did quite well and I got 3 star or whatever, but you know.
You're gonna regret this.
I believe this game is pretty long. I mean, obviously, it's a Final Fantasy game. Those games are known for being pretty damn long, but I want to say it's like. I want to say it's about 50 hours. That's what I have been told anyway. So if I'm about 8 hours in, then quite a way to go yet.
Way to go, Zaz!
I think I'll stick with this. I picked it up for about £5, which is not too bad.
I'm tougher than you thought, huh?
Obviously for how long it is, and for someone who hasn't played it, it's a pretty good deal. Like I said before, that all the stuff's starting to wear on me a little bit. Like the combat and the kind of monotonous nature of a lot of the systems. Also, it's extremely linear. Like, just look like it's the definition of linear. They don't even try and make it feel non-linear, which isn't, it's not directly a bad thing. It's not explicitly a criticism, but like a lot of other Final Fantasy games, like particularly like 10, I remember had a lot of fairly open areas, and well, not necessarily like open world, but a lot of give you more options of exploration and stuff.
Tell me about yourself.
And this, I don't know. It just, I don't mind it being linear. I think it makes the areas feel a bit more focused.
Oh, so you're married?
But I've heard that people level that as a criticism. Also, it's quite timely as that they're doing this now, but I think probably to me at least for now anyway, or up to this point, the most interesting point or thing about this game has been the narrative. Like I said, the combat's alright, but
Is it the Lassie thing?
How'd you...
etc, etc.
You might
But
be a Lassie, but you're still a daddy.
yeah, just ignore the lingo if you're not familiar with it. It's not too complicated, but whatever. The story is pretty weird, but I think it's well done. It's interesting. Obviously the voice acting's pretty good and the writing's decent. They do character development pretty well, probably better than any other Final Fantasy game has done. But that's always been one of my problems with the series, is that, well, not even necessarily a problem, because I didn't never really. I didn't really mind it because you know the gameplay was always so engaging or whatever, but this game definitely does character development and writing and stuff a lot better than any other Final Fantasy game.
Here's what I wished. I wish that you'd cheer up and be like your old self again.
Also, yeah, I forgot about that.
Your wish came true.
Yeah.
He's got a fucking baby chocobo in his afro. It's the dumbest thing.
Okay, it's my turn to wish.
What for, Dad?
That's my
They never explain why, but I really hope that they don't, because that would just be funny, to be honest. It would just be really dumb if they'd never explain it.
Sad?
Anyway, yeah, I think I mentioned it before. Like, they have all sorts of flashbacks
Right.
to the past and stuff,
Yeah.
and obviously typical
Come on, Pops. You
Like,
really got to keep it together, okay?
fiction or whatever.
No.
They're all at that fireworks event. Obviously, all these people that never met before, and
Now I got
blah
kids
blah.
to
It's
pick
all
up.
highly
Some dad I am.
coincidental, but whatever. You can look past that. Avoiding chaos. Scale beast. That's interesting. I was actually saying that before, but how you could skip fights, and now it's actually telling me to do that. Yeah, it's a decent TV image. Yeah, that guy looks hard. Alright, it's so much easier when you stagger enemies, because obviously, as the name implies, they get staggered when they get hit, and also they take a fuck ton more damage. But this enemy doesn't get staggered for long. Can I just run away? I don't know if that's a thing you can actually do. I would like to run. Can I run away? Oh, there you go. You know, probably should listen to the game. I don't think I can kill these. It's weird that it was telling me that I probably can't do it now. Is that it kind of implies that maybe there is some element of backtracking or something, which I didn't really expect considering how loading it begins and stuff. Okay, I'm kind of glad we don't there because
Is it
I don't want to.
really
I
over?
can't do that. And you'll also see that this game's actually pretty generous with checkpoints and stuff. When you die and you retry, it'll just put you literally outside that fight again. So we'll just take the game's advice and skip that fight. And I guess all these fights, because we can't seem to kill anyone. And I assume we'll probably come back later? Which seems weird, but there you go. Oh, we get some loot. There seems to be a pretty nice. I just completely skipped that. Didn't see what that was. Well, I'm sure it's not important. There seems to be a nice variation in the sort of environments. I've just added this sort of grassland area. We were in like some weird facility before. There was like a snowy place. Like yeah, decent variety. At least keeps the scenic stuff a bit more interesting, I guess. You know, it's so much Aeroria does. I think that's a level 3 ability. It costs 3 bars or whatever. Those guns look like they're made of Lego or something. They don't look real. They're really blocky. Also, something I find really weird is that I mean, maybe it's just natural progression, or it's just the way that, you know, the writers or whatever wanted this series to go. But you think of Final Fantasy historically, it's always been a fantasy series. I mean, obviously it's got fantasy in the name, but it also always used to be a fantasy RPG, medieval setting type stuff, swords and magic and stuff. And now I feel like as of 13, or even maybe as of 12, I don't really know. So again, I haven't played that one. It feels like more like a cross between like fantasy and sci-fi, but leaning more towards sci-fi than it ever has done. Like you could probably argue that the earlier, like even the SNES games or whatever, had sci-fi elements, but it was only really until actually no, I guess 7 had. From 7 onwards, they always kind of had like a tinge of sci-fi with like a fantasy backdrop. But I think they really lean much more heavily towards the sci-fi than they ever have them. Yeah, that's cool. Whatever. I find sci-fi more interesting than fantasy, so it's cool with me.
Now you're talking.
I don't know. You probably noticed before. But if whoever you're controlling, which at the moment is her, it constantly switches, which is another interesting thing that I don't think I mentioned before, where it'll constantly change who you're controlling based on, you know, what the story dictates you control, or you know, whatever. So I think last time I always says these two, I was controlling him rather than her. And whoever you control, obviously, is the one you actually have direct control over. And I think maybe the fact that you don't have direct control over your other party members might be one of the main reasons that... If you pop in here, it might be one of the main reasons that people have, you know, a problem with the combat system in this game is because you don't have direct control, which is such a fundamental part of previous Final Fantasy games, is you can control everyone individually, you have direct input, whereas now the other person is controlled by AI, which, you know, like I said, streamlined, etc, etc.
You
but
look tired. Not enough sleep?
I guess.
they generally,
Not surprising.
like with the whole auto chain thing,
You
they
feel like
they generally pick.
It's hard to close your eyes, huh?
What? She's gonna go to bed. Fuck all this bullshit. I'm just gonna go to bed. I can respect that. Oh, hey, little chocobo.
Being made of the sea, it's not easy. I mean, look. Even I'm kind of worried.
I wonder if it's got a name. I don't think he's mentioned it.
But even if we don't know what'll happen,
Her voice really annoys
our
me.
dreams alive,
It just reminded me.
have something to look forward to.
It's like a weird cross between like British and Australian. I don't know what.
Next stop is Nautilus.
I don't know. Sometimes she sounds British. Sometimes she sounds more Australian. I think she's meant to be Australian. I don't know. Or like New Zealand or that kind of area. Or maybe she is kind of meant to be British. I don't know. I think it's just meant to be Japanese interpretation of British or Australian or whatever. There's probably a word for that, honestly. Like that kind of that people from that kind of area, whether it is Britain or Australia or New Zealand or something, I probably just don't know it. It's not the Commonwealth because that includes like, you know, Canada and stuff, and that's outside of that. I would assume anyway. I mentioned before that I just noticed because we were getting some frame drops there, which obviously, you know, we're recording, so that's part of it. But I mentioned before that it was a decent port, but
What's up?
I've definitely been getting a lot of frame rate drops, like quite sudden ones and quite dramatic, like jumping from 60 to 30 FPS and then back up to 60 again. She's not great, but
you can't control who a FLC picks for a focus.
they've definitely, I mean, they've obviously made the port better by including the frame rate and, I mean, upgrading the frame rate and stuff. But it's still not a fantastic port by any stretch of the imagination. But hey, you know,
He said he wanted to see a foul sea.
it's not. There's no reason to.
I took him to go on a tour of Uriday Gorge.
There's no reason, you know, I'm not trying to excuse bad PC ports because I hate them as much as anyone. But
back into the energy plant he went.
I don't know this. What's going on?
Dodge! Dodge, come out here! Dodge! I know you're in here! Dodge! Where are you? Say something! Dodge!
Hey, what's wrong? Dodge!
Daddy.
Of course, he's got an afro, why wouldn't he?
You okay? You're not hurt, are you? What's that? Apparently, those post-Lassie had snuck in and tried to attack the Sanctum Fal'Cie. It did the only thing it could, and gave Dodge Lassie to protect it. My son, he got picked by a Sanctum Fal'Cie. He's a hero. But we're post-Lassie. Dodge's enemies.
Oh, some of this stuff's confusing.
Psychom showed up right after that
I
to
just-
take custody of him.
I don't know, it's
Then,
weird.
it was one test after another. Even then, they couldn't figure out his focus. Maybe it was look for post-Lassie. Maybe it was kill him.
I couldn't tell you what the difference between Lassie and Pulse Lassie is.
How
I
could a
have
kid
no idea.
that young even stand a chance? After he was made a Lassie, Dodge had some way of sensing things from Pulse. He was the one who found the post-Fal'Cie. But the kid can't fight. So, that's why I put myself on the train to Purgeville. I figured his focus had to have something to do with destroying that post-Fal'Cie. Thought I could do it for him. Well, you know the rest. If I was right about his focus, he's probably a crystal already. Of course, if he was supposed to take out that thing's Lassie, then either we die, or he's a Seath.
Die? Really?
It's a Seath, what? I don't think I've heard that one before. Oh, hey, buddy.
It's a pickle, all right. But the bird says no.
What? What's that even mean? Sure, fine, whatever.
There's a camera when you need one.
Wait, what? Oh, right, because of you. Right, I think we'll leave it there. I think that's enough. I think you've seen... Oh, Jesus. Flies through the air. I think you've seen enough of this game to know whether you're interested. I mean, this game's like 5 years old anyway, so if you hadn't already bought it, you probably already know if you're interested in the PC version, I mean. But, yep, that's Final Fantasy XIII. Available on Steam now. Obviously, it's available on 360 and PS3 as well. It's, like I said, $15-ish, or about £10, £11, I think. It was on sale, but obviously that'll probably be over by now. Anything else? Yep, full control support, decent port, like I said. It could be better, but they did fix some of the more fundamental problems. But yeah, Final Fantasy XIII. There is actually 13.2 as well. They added. That's what I was trying to remember, but not 13.3, not yet anyway. So if you want to check those out, they are also on Steam. So yes, check it out or don't, because you know it's a weird game.